A lot of therapists consider themselves experts on marriage and are happy to give you their opinion on why a relationship might fail. But this guy, Dr. John Gottman, has been scientifically researching what makes relationships work or blow up for over 30 years. He can listen to a couple argue for as little as 15 minutes, and he can predict with 91% accuracy if a couple is going to get divorced unless significant changes are made in their relationship. In this video, I'll cover Dr. Gottman's top 7 severe warning signs that a relationship is headed for the end. And stay till the end, because the last one of these 7 is probably the most significant. The first 4 warning signs are from what Dr. Gottman calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. It's a reference to the end of times in the book of Revelation. What he's saying here is, if you allow these 4 horsemen to dominate your relationship, communication patterns, without a doubt, the end of your relationship will come. What are they? Let's dive in. Number 1, criticism. When we begin what could be a conversation with words that feel more like an attack, a conversation quickly turns into an argument. And that argument almost never returns to being a conversation. In fact, Gottman says 86% of the time it just goes downhill from there. So if you begin a conversation poorly with attacking words, it's better if you just stop and try again later. Beginning a sentence with the word you is almost always what Gottman calls a harsh startup. You never do this, you always do that, you can't be trusted. You leaves the person feeling attacked. Why is also an attacking word. Why'd you leave the chicken out? Why didn't you call the plumber? Why did you do things that way? Why feels like an attack and puts people on the defensive, which leads to the second horseman, defensiveness. But before we get into that, let me tell you what does work. Starting sentences with the word I, and especially I feel, feels less like an attack and more like you're simply sharing your perspective. Gottman calls this a gentle startup. I'm disappointed that we're unable to spend time together tonight, or I'm worried about your stress level right now. Starting sentences with the word I helps. Number 2, defensiveness. When we feel attacked, we instinctively put our guard up to protect ourselves. That's normal. That's natural. The problem is, that's not helpful. Sidestepping blame, like, how was I supposed to know you wanted to spend time together tonight? Or a counterattack, well, you never want to spend time with me either, doesn't help. Because our spouse is left feeling unheard and his or her feelings invalidated. Rather than calm the argument down, it just heats it up more. What does work? Accepting responsibility. If I can take at least some responsibility for my actions, it calms down my partner's frustrations. You know, you're right. I did say that I was going to hang out with you tonight, and that's my fault. I'm sorry that I didn't mention to you that my boss dropped this project on me at the last minute, and I got to get it done before tomorrow morning. Take responsibility whenever you can. It can guide a budding argument back into a conversation when we accept responsibility for our actions and we don't make excuses. Are you still with me? If so, click the like button and subscribe button before we move forward. And if you want more information about the 4 horsemen, click the link in my bio to learn more about my marriage masterclass, based in large part on Dr. John Gottman's research. Okay, number 3, the 3rd horseman is probably the worst of all. Contempt. When we criticize our spouse using harsh, sometimes sarcastic remarks about our partner's character, that's contempt. Well, I know how important you are and how valuable your time is, so I'm amazed that you get to spend some time with me. That sarcasm is contempt. Contempt is vicious. It spits harsh, rude, sarcastic daggers about someone's character. You're so lazy, you're so selfish, you're so rude, you're so stupid. Notice that contempt, just like criticism, often starts with the word you, and it attacks someone's character. But with contempt, it's even more harsh. And contempt often uses absolutes like always or never. So what should you do? Well, avoid using absolutes like always and never. Instead, say words like often or frequently or rarely. And avoid sarcasm. And of course, avoid starting sentences with the word you. And the fourth and final horseman, stonewalling. Often when a spouse has been emotionally overloaded with criticism and or contempt, and maybe has used defensiveness a number of times to try to fend off that attack, that spouse may start resorting to using stonewalling, where he or she just kind of zones out to protect his or her emotional safety. He or she may, roll his eyes or just kind of tune out, seemingly to go off into a different world, to try to ignore that feeling of harsh criticism and contempt. This stonewalling, though, it just makes the other person attack even more. They get more upset because, they don't think that you're listening or that the other person is paying attention to them or even cares. If your relationship has hit this point frequently, where one of you is using contempt and the other is using stonewalling pretty often, things have really gotten pretty bad. You need to talk now to get some help for your relationship, because one of the things that's going on is the fifth severe warning sign. So number 5, emotional flooding. You've been flooded. I've been flooded. We've all experienced emotional flooding from time to time. Emotional flooding is that feeling you get when a simple conversation has turned into an argument. And we feel that all sorts of emotions starting to rise up inside. The amygdala in our brain has gotten triggered, and just suddenly in the blink of an eye. And we've gone into that fight or flight mode. Argue or withdraw, yell or zone out. And once we're emotionally flooded, it's over. It's hard to even think clearly. We're no longer using our rational brain. One or both of us is probably attacking, and the other is either defending, counterattacking, or stonewalling. It's no longer a conversation. It's time to stop, take a break, do some deep breathing, and come back to this one later. Interestingly, men get emotionally flooded more quickly than women, even though they don't necessarily show it. And research shows that men stay angry longer. The research is very clear. So wives, when he says, I don't want to talk about it, or I'm not ready to talk about it yet, he's really telling you the truth. He may still be emotionally flooded, and restarting an argument while he's still flooded is likely to stoke the flames into another heated argument. So stop until you're both ready to talk calmly. In my marriage counseling private practice, one of the most common tools I try to get people to do is simply to stop and take a break. It's one of the simplest but hardest things for many couples to do. Recognizing that they're getting heated and forcing themselves to stop before things go downhill is really, really critical. Finally, number 6, failed repair attempts. After my wife and I argue, one of us invariably reaches out to the other to kind of, break the ice and repair the relationship. Sometimes it's an obvious gesture, like one of us apologizing or reaching over to grab the other person's hand. But honestly, often, a lot of times it's something more simple and understated. Like, hey, I'm gonna get a soda out of the fridge. Do you want one? Or, hey, I'm not using the remote anymore. Would you like it? Something simple that says to the other person, hey, let's get over this and move forward. Gottman's research has found that it's crucial that these repair attempts are not rejected. If my wife and I are in bed together, for example, after an argument, and she, reaches over to me, if I reject that repair attempt, research is clear. That's incredibly damaging to the relationship. Because very soon, that person will stop trying to reach out and repair. And repairs will eventually cease to happen. Has that ever happened to you or your spouse? Number 7, bad memories. When all a husband or wife can remember from their marriage are bad memories, the problem has become severe. This is perhaps one of the most significant signs that the end may be near. They've engaged in what Gottman calls negative sentiment override. They assume negative intent on virtually everything that person does or says. For example, why does my wife look so irritated? She's probably angry at me. She's always angry about something. Or, why'd my husband do that? Doesn't he think I can handle it myself? All they can think about is the negative, and they interpret every move by the other person in a negative way. They assume the worst. If your relationship is in this state, reach out now. But it's not over till it's over. Each of these severe warning signs have very specific research-proven antidotes, some which I've mentioned here, designed to improve your marriage if you're willing to put in the work. Notice that I didn't say if your spouse is willing to put in the work, because I've seen some badly damaged marriages be resurrected when one spouse has put in the work to repair the relationship. Yes, it is easier when both are committed to doing the work, absolutely, but one can create a difference. Is your marriage struggling? If you'd like some guidance, I'm here to help. Check out my counseling and coaching private practice and my marriage masterclass on davidroper.net. Enjoy.